Hi, my name is Abby Pitts, and I'm the Director of Retention and Tennessee Promise Support at Cumberland. This is Ava. She is 6 weeks old today. She's a little bit young to be left with a babysitter, so
she's making her debut.
She's making her Cumberland debut early. Hopefully she's going to be a Cumberland grad in 22 years. I guess I can't do the math, so that's what, 2042? That's crazy to even think about. But I want to kind of share my story a little bit. I forgot what I even called this chapel chat, honestly. Life's Best Laid Plans, I think is what I called it. And when Dr. Ripsky talked about kind of what he wanted the themes for the chapel chats to be this year, he talked about how we can kind of relate it to the pandemic. And so I wanted to just kind of share my story, share kind of how I got to Cumberland, and then relate it back to how it can help you as a college student right now. So how many planners do we have in here? 2, at least 3-ish. And when I talk about planners, I'm not talking like planning my meals every day and planning my outfits every day and stuff like that. Although if you've got tips for meal planning, I will take them. But kind of a big picture planner. So I am a person, and Dr. Ripsky knows this very well after working with me for the last couple of years. I need to have my plan all mapped out, and I really need to have like a plan B, C, D, E, and F if plan A does not work out. So I am a little bit OCD when it comes to planning. And like everybody else, the pandemic has kind of thrown that all out of whack. I cannot imagine being a college student, but especially a college freshman right now, because you have this idea in your head of like what life is supposed to look like, or at least I did when I was a freshman. And going into college, I was like, okay, life is going to be like this. I was going to graduate in 4 years. And then while I was in college, I was going to meet the man I was going to marry. And I was going to have a career right after I graduated. I was going to get married. I was going to wait exactly 5 years, then have kids, have 3 or 4 kids, house, white picket fence, all that good stuff. That did not happen. And what I really kind of want to share about is how life has actually wound up infinitely better, even though my plans have not actually kind of come to fruition like I thought. So because life did not work out the way that I thought it would during college, I was going to be an education major. I was going to teach kindergarten for a couple years. Then I eventually wanted to be a guidance counselor. About midway through my college career, I realized that being an elementary school teacher, I love them, cannot imagine being one. So here I was, my first big life change. I was 20, and I felt like I was having some sort of midlife crisis, although that's crazy. But I changed my major, and I didn't know what I wanted to be, so I decided to be a business major. Fast forward to college graduation, I got a job. Realized pretty quickly between an internship and 2 jobs in 2 years that the business world is not what I wanted to do. So again, kind of went against what I thought my life plans were. So that meant my mid-20s were hard, y'all. I mean, I didn't know what I was going to do. I felt really lost. I had not met the man that I was going to marry, so therefore I was not close to having kids. And for me, for a planner, for somebody who I wanted life to look a certain way, that was really, really scary. Eventually wound up in higher education, doing something that felt really fulfilling for me. I started off in financial aid. I wound up working in academic support, and that was kind of my first glimpse in, even though life did not look like I thought it was going to look, it was looking better than I ever could have imagined. Academic support was really fulfilling to me. I got to work with college students every day, got to do a lot of academic advising, even did some tutoring and stuff like that. Throughout that time, it's also where I met the man who has become my husband, through working with students. So that was kind of a fringe benefit in academic support. But I truly went to work every day, and I felt really fulfilled. And I felt like this is my calling. My dad joked that it was my calling because I got to boss people around every day by being an academic advisor and telling them what to do. I don't think it was because I got to boss people around every day, but I got to help students I got to be in the passenger seat while they discovered what they wanted to do. And in the meantime, I tried to help reassure them that, again, even though they don't exactly know what the answer is right at this moment, we can still kind of go on a path. So I did that for about 3 years, and it there was a crossroads in my career where I really needed to advance my career, but what that meant was leaving academic support. And that was a really scary thing for me because, again, it's something that I knew was my calling, and I knew that that's what I was supposed to do. But I did it. I left because it was an advancement in my career. I went back into financial aid, and that happened in 2013. And it was one of those things where as soon as I left, I began praying that eventually my path would lead me back to that. And so for me, I'm a Christian, and so prayer is kind of how I process through the difficult times. Even if you're not a Christian, I hope you have a way, whether it's meditation, whether it's working with a friend, a trusted person in your life. I hope you have a way that you process through things, but prayer is one of the ways that I process through things. So back in 2013, I started praying that God would put me back into academic support when I needed to. So end of 2013, my husband and I got engaged, and things were actually, beginning to work toward my plan again. So I had my career, I was advancing in my career, I had my master's degree, I had my fiance. 2 weeks after we got engaged, my husband got a phone call. My husband is a football coach. He got a phone call and was offered a job 2 states away. Whoa, hold on, not in my plan at all. I had never lived further, other than internships and study abroads. I never lived further than 30 or 45 minutes from my parents and my sisters, who I was extremely close to. I never really lived far away from my friend group. So once again, this was not my plan, and I was not okay with my plan not working out. So gets a call. He moves 2 states away in January of 2014. We get married in May, and I moved up there then. That was a tough time for us because it was a time that we met some wonderful, wonderful people while we were there. But it was one of those things where we just didn't really ever feel like we completely fit in with the culture and the community where we lived. And so my husband had a new career opportunity. I was able to work on campus at the same campus where he worked, but was in financial aid still. So again, not the position that I wanted, not academic support, but even though we were uncomfortable, we still trusted we were where we were supposed to be at that time, and we hoped that we would be there for as long as we needed to be. During that first football season when we were there, we actually came down to Lebanon and played Cumberland. And I remember distinctly when we got back home, my husband and I kind of sat up talking after we got back home, and I was like, Lebanon's kind of a cool place. I would love to eventually live there. It's just close enough to Nashville, but it's a small enough town. Lebanon would be a cool place to be. And so again, that's another one of those things that back in 2014 we began praying for. So prayed for a job, prayed for a place, and that's, we started praying about it, but it wasn't anything intentional. Fast forward 3 years later, we've got 2 kids at this point in time. We had a little girl who was born in 2015 and another little girl who was born in 2017. After the football season ended, it was almost 3 years ago, I think to the day, my husband was actually let go. And being let go, being a football coach, you kind of anticipate eventually. My husband says there's 2 kinds of football coaches who have been fired and football coaches who will be fired. And so we were all of a sudden that statistic where we were a football coach who'd been fired. But that did not make it any easier for us. That was one of the darkest, hardest times that I can really remember, because for the longest time, my husband had a path and he knew where he was supposed to be. And all of a sudden, he didn't have that anymore. And so he was home every day, which was great, but he didn't want to be home every day. He wanted to be doing what he loved, and he wanted to be doing his passion. And it's a helpless feeling as a support person, as his spouse, to not really be able to do anything about that. And then from just the daily, paying bills and stuff like that, that was a hard thing to process through. To add to that, I still worked at the school where my husband was let go, and I had to work on a somewhat regular basis with the people who were responsible for letting him go. And so that was a hard time to kind of process through. And in the midst of that time, again, my planning heart is like, okay, so we own a home now, we have 2 kids, I have a really good job, but what are we going to do? We don't want to stay in this community. What are we supposed to do? So 5 months later, a dear friend of ours got the head coaching job at Cumberland. And if you remember, in 2014, we started praying that maybe God would open some doors in Lebanon and at Cumberland. And he did. So Coach Mathis called my husband and asked him to come coach. And so March of 2018, Paul, my husband, moved to Lebanon and became the offensive coordinator here at Cumberland. That was great. The hard part is that I still had my job in Kentucky, and we had a home there, so I couldn't move until we found a job. So there's still in my planning heart, okay, things are starting to work out, but where is this really all going to kind of come together, and how is this going to work out? Back in May of 2018, I was on Cumberland's website, which I refreshed the employment page a freakish amount of time. I mean, like probably every day I was like, oh, let's see if Cumberland has a new job available. But the Director of Retention and Tennessee Promise Support job was posted. And when I tell y'all that it is my dream job, I mean, it combines everything that I've been praying about since I left my job in August of 2013. Now that doubt creeped in. I remember seeing the job. I called my husband and I called a couple of my friends, and I was like, there's no way I'm qualified for that. And they're like, apply, it'll be okay. So fast forward August 1st of 2018, I finally got the job that I've been praying about and dreaming about, or I started the job I've been praying about and dreaming about, and the place that we've been praying about. And I won't say that it's all been easy. There have been some adjustments. We haven't sold our house in Kentucky. We have people who are renting it, but that with renting comes landlord issues and repairs and stuff like that. My husband coached at Cumberland for about a year, and then an opportunity opened up for him at a local high school. So he is the offensive coordinator at Trousdale County High School, and he teaches in middle school. I never, ever, ever thought that our path would take him there. I would say that he is a coach. I would have said he was a coach first, and that teaching would be a distraction to that. What I've actually learned in my not so infinite wisdom and my planning heart, he actually is a really great teacher, and he really loves it, and he's really fulfilled by it. And so now I think he would, and I would definitely identify him as a teacher who teaches in the classroom and then also gets the opportunity to teach on the football field too. So all of that to say, we have wound up exactly where we've wanted to wind up, doing exactly what it is that we're supposed to do, in spite of the fact that I tried to control it at every single step of the way and failed pretty miserably at that as well. And I think that that's kind of what the parallel that I want to draw between kind of what life looks like for me right now and what life looks like for you guys. Life is really uncertain. Life as a college student, period, is really uncertain. But life as a college student in the middle of the pandemic, in the middle of the political climate that we're in right now, in the middle of the just social climate that we're in right now, it's a scary time to be a college student. And it's especially a scary time if you like to plan every single little thing, which I'm still guilty of, but I'm trying to learn to let go a little bit. What I want to say though, and what I want to encourage you about is it will work out the way that it's supposed to work out. And so I want you to lean on either your faith. If you are a person of faith, lean on your mentor, lean on somebody or something when things begin to feel out of control. I've been in a really, I guess, being a new mom, this is our third baby. She was born September 23rd, and that's something else that we prayed for and that we have been faithfully blessed with. But I'm emotional in this time, and I'm very appreciative of kind of how life has turned out for us. And so in this time of reflection, I have run across a verse in the Bible that talks about God trading beauty for ashes. And so this time 3 years ago felt like ashes for us. I will never forget the look on my husband's face when he told me he lost his job. And I will never forget how lost we felt as a couple. And I can't imagine how he felt during that time. But throughout that time, we leaned on each other. We could not have been strong. It made us stronger. But we also leaned on our faith. And so to kind of see how we've come out, we've been blessed with 3 beautiful girls and 2 jobs that are incredibly fulfilling. And so to see our story of what we felt like were ashes at the time turned into something so beautiful, we're so grateful and thankful for that. But I want to encourage you, your life may feel and look like ashes right now. We're in the home stretch of the semester, the part of the semester that just kind of sucks all the way around, if you want me to be completely honest. But it can still turn out beautifully. So I want to encourage you as I'm closing, your path is not defined by where you are right now. Your path can change, your life can change. I want to encourage you to lean on someone or something. And if you don't have somebody or something, come and find me. I want to be your cheerleader. The best part of my job is just working with students every day. And I'm still on maternity leave for another week. But I love working with students every day. I love getting to know their stories. That's part of the thing that makes me love my job so much, and I feel so fortunate to be able to do what I do. But find somebody to lean on so that we can encourage you during this time of uncertainty, that your path right now, where you are right now, is not where you're going to end up, and just kind of be along for the ride and be there to enjoy it and be able to look back, in 5, 10, 15 years and say, wow, now all this makes sense. So thank you for giving me time to share my story today. Do y'all have any questions? Dr. Ripsky told me I had to ask that question.
I've got 2.
Okay.
Given your experience and mine too, because I didn't pick a major until the end of my junior year, and I was running out of time and had to pick one that I still had time to fulfill the requirements. I react negatively to the pressure put on students when they come here to know their major, given the life that you and I both give testimony to, which is one that it just doesn't feel right to be forced to make a commitment before you're ready to, both in terms of maturity, life experience, etc. So question 1 is, what do you tell students when they're expected to declare a major in my opinion, so early? So what I do is I say, yeah, you did, but don't take it seriously. Be open to learning about yourself and what you might be good at. That's the first thing. The other thing is teaching FSL, as you have, for beginning freshmen. We're trying to motivate students to take college seriously, at the same time that they know and we know that what they're preparing themselves for is a big question mark, because we don't know what is out there in terms of what jobs are going to be needed, still available by the time they graduate, that uncertainty, how do you, being responsible for keeping students in college, retaining them, where does that motivation and inspiration come when there's so much uncertainty about why we're working so hard and making these sacrifices for?
So the first question, what do I tell students who have to declare their major so early? So if you're a Tennessee Promise student, you have to come in with the major declared. I tell people two things. One, I say this a lot, that's probably my favorite phrase, give yourself grace and be willing to kind of allow yourself to change your mind. Now, what that may mean as a Tennessee Promise student is you might have come in Associate of Arts in Education. Maybe you just transition over to Associate of Arts, and then you can try out a couple classes that might be of interest to you that will still count towards your associate's degree. I changed my major second semester of my sophomore year, and I'm so thankful for that because I had a work study opportunity that helped me realize that teaching elementary school kids was not what I wanted to do. And I'm thankful for that because if I hadn't, it would have been student teaching before I realized that. And then there would have been a whole other moment of panic. But even if you are past the point of really being able to change your major to something that you want to do, sometimes you just need to get that degree. So if you're your junior year or even your senior year and you're like, oh my gosh, I cannot be major X, Y, or Z, sometimes it just comes down to you've got a bachelor's degree and you are going to learn and work toward in your job what it is that you ultimately want to do. So give yourself grace and then realize that sometimes what you wind up doing is not going to be related to your field at all, and that's perfectly fine and it's okay. Second question, what do I do when students, rephrase that question, or repeat that question for me again, sorry.
How do we keep students motivated, for whom college is hard anyway?
Yeah.
When we can't hold out a kind of definite vision of what's going to be there when they finish their education?
So that's a great question. That's something that we talk about a lot. I haven't taught FSL in about a year, but I'll be teaching it again in the spring. We talk about it a lot in FSL, and then if you come and you meet with me, or even if you meet with Miss Anderson in our office or Tessa in our office, something we talk about is your motivation level. And we talk about it in terms of intrinsic, so internal motivation, and extrinsic or external motivation. You've got to have, and in simple terms, what is your why? Why are you in college? And in a lot of cases, you've got to have that internal motivation, whether it's something to prove to yourself, whether it's a goal that you have, you want to do X, Y, Z. You've got to have that internal motivation, and you have to understand that college, while it's a great experience, it's going to be hard and it's going to be gross sometimes. And especially right now with the unknowns and the uncertainties with the job market, that internal motivation that you have is going to be what pushes you through to the hard times. I've even had students who have come in and talked to me about wanting to drop out, wanting to leave. I ask them to make a pros and cons list. It sounds silly, but pros, why do you want to stay in college? What's going to benefit you? And then your cons list. Why would you leave right now? And a lot of times for a lot of our students, it comes down to, well, I can work right now and I can make more money than if I were to stay in college. And that's very valid, especially with the economy being what it is right now, with jobs being what they are right now. But you also kind of have to think more long term and think about, what do you want to eventually do? What do you want your earning power to eventually be? And are you able to kind of make some sacrifices in the short term to hopefully increase that long-term earning power? But again, a lot of it has to come from within. It's wonderful if you're coming to college because you want to prove something to your mom, to your grandma, to your dad. That's fantastic. But when it gets really, 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 really hard, you've got to think about, why are you there for you? And why are you doing for yourself? What is it about college that makes you want to stay? And that's really the question that's going to keep you motivated when we're 2 weeks before finals and you've got a cumulative final in every class and you are panicking about how to study for those finals. Other questions?
Good answer.
All right. Thank you all. Have a good day.